Trump says that African Americans have never produced a genius. Michael Jordan doesn't react immediately, but a few days later, in front of students in Chicago, he takes the mic, and what he's about to say will resonate all the way to the White House. It's not an official conference, not a diplomatic statement, just a filmed interview in a climate-controlled Florida studio. Trump, seated in a leather armchair, chats with a conservative host. They're discussing the state of the world, the future of youth, and then, out of nowhere, between two chuckles, he drops the line. African Americans? No, they've never produced a genius. If they had, history would have remembered it, believe me. The tone is casual. The remark slips out like another provocation, but it spreads fast, very fast. Social media grabs hold, clips loop endlessly, first in America, then Europe, then across the African diaspora. Some laugh, others rage, many choose silence. Pundits move on, diplomacy stays out of it as usual. But in certain neighborhoods, the words linger, in schools, cafes, sports clubs. They're repeated, debated, absorbed, then set aside, until they resurface one day, sparked by a simple question. A month later, Jordan is invited to a Nike event in Chicago. A morning with young people, workshops, a roundtable. No politics, no controversy, just a conversation about mentorship, motivation, role models. Jordan is there, quiet as always, listening more than speaking. But at the end of the discussion, a young boy, maybe 15, raises his hand. His voice is soft but steady. Mr. Jordan, did you hear what Trump said about African Americans, that we've never produced a genius? What do you think? The room freezes. The moderator hesitates. A few adults murmur. Jordan doesn't smile, doesn't look away. He locks eyes with the boy, holds his gaze for a long moment, then picks up the mic. He's not reading from notes, not searching for words. He says simply, "I heard it, yeah." And, as he often does with remarks like that, I chose not to react right away. But since you're asking me, that day, Jordan hasn't prepared speech. He doesn't know his words will soon circle the globe. He doesn't even want them to. He just wants to answer a kid searching for understanding. But in 5 minutes, the whole room will get it. And beyond, in high schools, communities, social media, and newsrooms, silence will turn to listening. Jordan holds the mic in one hand, the other resting on the table. He doesn't stand taller, doesn't play for effect. He speaks softly, as if to one child, as if sharing something simple, lived. To say African Americans have never produced a genius is like saying the sky has never had stars. You just have to know where to look. The room is still, not a sound, not a movement. Jordan continues, his voice steady, never rising. I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. Not exactly the place you'd find fancy labs or Ivy League schools. And yet, I saw geniuses. Not the ones on TV, not the ones invited to gala dinners. The other kind, the quiet ones, the invisible ones. He pauses. The faces in the room are tense, attentive. Genius, to me, was my friend Marcus, who could make everyone laugh even when his mom was working 2 jobs. It was Tasha, who understood chemistry better than her teachers, but never got a shot. It was Jamal, who spent nights fixing cars to help his family eat. It was Keisha, who wrote songs in a notebook she never showed anyone. Jordan glances at the boy in the front row, then adds, "A genius isn't always the one who invents something. It's often the one who stands tall when everything around them tries to pull them down." In the back, some adults lower their eyes, others nod. The boy who asked the question doesn't move. He's fixed on Jordan, waiting for more. So Jordan goes on. But if we're talking about genius in history, let's tell the truth. George Washington Carver, who revolutionized agriculture with the peanut. Frederick Douglass, whose words shaped the fight for freedom. Harriet Tubman, who outsmarted systems designed to crush her. And I could keep going. He stops for a moment, then continues, even calmer. If you've never heard these names, it's not because they didn't exist. It's because history sometimes chooses what it shines a light on and what it buries. The silence in the room shifts. It's no longer awkward. It's reverent. Jordan sets the mic down gently. He's not trying to persuade, not waiting for applause. He's just answered with who he is, with what he knows. And yet he's not done. Jordan lifts his eyes slightly. He doesn't pick up the mic right away, letting a few seconds pass. Not for drama, but to give everyone time to take in what he said. Then, calmly, he continues. And if some think African American geniuses are just relics of the past, just pages in old books, they're wrong about that too. A murmur ripples through the room. Some kids exchange glances, others scribble notes. Jordan's tone doesn't change. Take Lonnie Johnson, the engineer who invented the Super Soaker but also worked on NASA's Galileo mission. You won't see him on talk shows, but he changed how we play and how we explore space. Or Lisa Jackson, who led the EPA and shaped environmental policy for millions. How many here knew her name before today? He scans the room. No hands go up. That's the real problem. It's not that geniuses don't exist. It's that they're not given the spotlight they deserve because they don't always come from the right place, the right school, or the right background. His voice stays soft, almost measured, but every word lands with precision. You know, I started playing basketball. Some folks thought I was just a kid with a bad attitude. I came from a neighborhood they wrote off, with a name they didn't bother to learn. But what I had on the court wasn't luck. What I had in my head wasn't either. He locks eyes with the boy who asked the question, holding his gaze. So, when someone says a people has never produced a genius, it's not a mistake, it's violence. It's a way of saying, you don't even deserve to be seen. Jordan doesn't smile, doesn't lean into emotion. He speaks with a quiet clarity, and no one in the room dares interrupt. He adds, finally, but the geniuses are here, in your classrooms, in your families, sometimes in your own mirror. You just have to stop looking for them somewhere else. This time, when he sets the mic down, the room stays frozen. Not because it's over, but because something has begun. Jordan sits still, but everyone looks at him as if he's risen. He's touched something few dare to address. Not just memory, not just achievement, but what it means to be a genius when you come from somewhere else. He picks up the mic one last time. His voice is calm but deeper. I'm not a historian. I'm not a scientist. I'm here because I wore a jersey and did what I could to make it matter. But that jersey carried who I am, my name, my story, my roots. A kid in the back exhales softly. The restlessness is gone. Even the adults are still. My parents worked hard, not to be told one day they were less than anyone else. They built lives, got up early, sacrificed, but never complained. And they never forgot who they were. Jordan looks at the students one by one. What I became, I owe to them, to their dignity, their silence, their strength. They didn't teach me to shout. They taught me to do. He pauses, uninterrupted. When I won championships, I didn't think of myself. I thought of everyone who never got a mic, who's called by their background instead of their name, who's assumed to be here by chance. He lowers his eyes for a second, then looks up. I've never asked for anyone to thank African Americans. I just ask that people look, really look. Because when you keep saying geniuses come from somewhere else, you start convincing our kids they can't be one. He sets the mic down for good. It's not a speech, not a settling of scores. It's a mirror, held up without anger, but without mercy. In that mirror, everyone sees what they want, what they fear, or who they are. Jordan says nothing more, but his words won't stay confined to that room. In the hours that follow, the video leaks. For once, it's not a clip of outrage, not a clash, not a debate, just a steady voice restoring dignity to millions of unheard voices. No one knows who filmed it. Maybe a student, maybe a Nike staffer, maybe a teacher. What's clear is it wasn't planned. The event wasn't public, no live stream, no official cameras. But 24 hours later, the clip spreads, not on TV, not in papers, but on an anonymous X account with a simple caption. Jordan responds to Trump. Listen closely. The video lasts 4 minutes. No edits, no music, no filters. Just Jordan, his steady gaze, his calm voice, his precise words, and a silence in the room you can feel through the screen. Within hours, it's on TikTok, Twitter, racking up 1 million views, then 10. Clips loop endlessly. Arabic, French, English sites pick it up. Teachers use it in classrooms, parents send it to their kids, youth in marginalized neighborhoods share it with newfound pride. It's not a political message, not an attack. It's a response, dignified, clear, and profoundly human. While pundits debate Trump's right to weigh in on civilization, a quiet phenomenon spreads. Young people, often unseen, feel seen, recognized, heard, not because they were handed a voice, but because someone finally took one for them. Jordan stays silent. He doesn't share the video, doesn't mention it in interviews. Those who know him say he's seen it, and he understands. At Nike, there's debate about pulling the video. Lawyers worry. Some suggest turning it into a campaign, others want it buried. But given the online tidal wave, they decide to do nothing. For once, it's not a marketing stunt, not a PR move. It's a moment of truth, and that moment can't be stopped. The White House doesn't react at first. Trump's advisors, used to weathering controversies, assume this one will fade. A few days, maybe a week. After all, Trump didn't name Jordan directly, and it's not his first provocation. But something's off. The global response is different. Calm, but massive. Jordan's restraint, his measured words, have an impact Trump's team didn't see coming. In U.S. universities, students dissect the video in sociology and history classes. Professors at Harvard and Berkeley share it as an example of nonviolent resistance to stigmatizing rhetoric. Even in conservative circles, some commentators, uneasy, admit Trump's remark was ill-judged. In the African diaspora, the impact is seismic. Outlets like The Root and Ebony dedicate front pages to Jordan's words. Not because he attacked a president, but because he gave black youth an image of pride and quiet dignity, without anger, without slogans, just with facts and presence. At the U.S. Embassy in Chicago, diplomats receive hundreds of letters, some supporting Jordan, others harsher, accusing America of cultural disdain. As the unease grows, a meeting is called in Washington. Trump's advisors float options: ignore, counterattack, distract. Trump refuses to apologize, but he senses this shockwave slipping beyond his control. Meanwhile, Jordan stays silent. No posts, no comments, no interviews. He doesn't play the game, doesn't seek to win a PR battle. And it's that silence that starts to unsettle those who only understand noise. In Chicago, Atlanta, Lagos, London, in neighborhoods where voices are often dismissed or distorted, the video keeps circulating. It's not just shares anymore. It's conversations, silences too, sometimes when it plays on a phone screen between sips of coffee. Then something unexpected happens. In a high school in Brooklyn, a history teacher assigns a task. Watch Jordan's response, then tell me if wisdom can exist without a degree. In a Chicago rec center, a coach plays the video for his team before practice. He says nothing, just starts the session. But that day, the kids move with a different focus. In a community center in Nairobi, a mother shows the clip to her sons. She doesn't speak much English, but she understands the look, the tone, the dignity. Everywhere, young people who no longer saw themselves in any narrative find an echo. Not in the content, perhaps, but in the form. In standing tall, responding without crumbling, speaking without humiliating. Jordan, without meaning to, becomes more than a basketball legend. He becomes a beacon, not an idol, not a slogan, a beacon. In some schools, kids pin up posters of his words. Others invite him to speak. He declines politely. But the letters keep coming. In the private messages he rarely checks, his sons forward a few. Thank you. Because of you, I answer my teacher without losing my cool. Thank you. I sent your video to my dad. He said it made him cry. Thank you. You said what my grandma used to say, but no one listened. Jordan reads them. He doesn't reply, but he gets it. He didn't speak to Trump. He spoke to those who were never seen. The TV panels roll on, pundits spar. Some accuse Jordan of playing a subtle game. Others see a political ploy. One New York critic even claims he's manipulating urban youth with populist poetry. But Jordan doesn't respond. That silence starts to unnerve. No words, no defense, no follow-up. He lets his words live on their own, as if they weren't his, as if he'd just lent his voice to something bigger. At Nike, thousands of messages pour in. Some customers want a clothing line tied to the speech, a slogan, an image. Jordan refuses flat out. This doesn't belong to a brand or to me, he says. It belongs to those it reached. In the corridors of power in Washington and beyond, it dawns that this isn't a typical controversy. It's not loud. It doesn't seek victory. It doesn't fuel a war. It opens, it shifts, it disarms. A university in South Africa, a conference on modern African leadership screens Jordan's clip as its opener. A professor concludes, some speak to exist. Others, like Jordan, exist so deeply they only need to speak once. That's the real genius, reminding the world that words don't need noise to carry weight. One morning, on a U.S. radio show, a former Trump advisor is asked about the Jordan affair. He sighs, hesitates, then says, "Let's stop making Jordan a hero. He's a basketball player, not a philosopher." That offhand remark, innocuous to some, changes everything. It lands at the wrong time, when millions of young people in America and beyond have found in Jordan a figure of calm, strength, and legacy. They're told their role model doesn't matter. His words hold no weight. He should stay quiet. The reaction is swift. Not riots, not insults, but voices. Videos, posts, essays, stories. Young people speak out, explaining why Jordan lifted them, why his words woke them, why they won't look down when their heritage is questioned. In hours, a movement sparks, spontaneous, unscripted. Students testify, workers write, mothers share. One phrase echoes. If he's worth nothing, what then is our silence worth? The advisor's misstep becomes the trigger for a wave no president, party, or slogan could have sparked. Jordan, still silent, watches from afar. He doesn't respond, just continues his life, his projects, his quiet training sessions. But he knows that moment, those words won't fade. He's planted something without meaning to, and what's growing now is no longer his. 3 weeks pass. News channels move on, analysts too. A new scandal, a new crisis, a new debate. Everything fades except one thing, that video. It still circulates quietly on phones, in classrooms, in offices. It's shown to those who doubt, those who give up, those who've been silenced too long. Jordan never speaks of Trump's remark again, never repeats his own words. He just keeps existing, as he always has, calm, dignified, grounded. And that's what lingers most. It's not a response he gave. It's a lesson, not on politics or history, but on what it means to rise, to be an example without trying to take the light and give it back. In neighborhoods, kids write letters to their teachers, sharing their own stories. Others return to school, determined to prove they can. In a prison in Illinois, a counselor says 2 inmates watched the video and, for the first time, spoke. Not of basketball, not of fame, but of themselves, their dreams, fears, their hopes. In a Chicago high school in Chicago, a teacher writes a quote on the board. A genius isn't always invents something. It's someone who stands tall when everything around them pushes them to fall. She doesn't mention Jordan, doesn't need to. In that room, everyone knows where it came from and why it'll stay.